together. You see, you can change, you can always change this. All right, so let me just say okay, I want to like this. This is how you work with that other tool. Then next you move to line spacing, which is just the difference between one line space to another. If you wanted to add another text, this line spacing is pushing the next text right down. So that's how that one works. You move straight to the shadows. These are shadows. Look at, for instance, this is it here, written shadows. When you enable the shadow, you're going to add the shadow, but to the text. Now you can change the color of the shadow to any color you want. Those are the shadows. Let me put black, for instance. Now the opacity can be reduced to something not almost seen, just like you can add it completely. You can blur the radius by expanding. You look at some kind of expansion taking place behind there, and then you can add an outer glow. Look at that's an outer glow, and you can just customize it using this. Now when you offset X, it's either you're taking it to the left or to the right, and when you offset to the y-axis, it's either you're taking it up or down. For instance, up or down. If I want this shadow to look downwards, this is how I'm going to put it. All right, so haven't gone through this, I think you are on a good footing. All right, the next thing here is the inner shadows. Now look at, there's a difference between a shadow and inner shadows. Look at the inner shadows. When you enable it here, this is what it does. It adds inner shadow to the text. Take for instance, we're going to change that to yellow. See where the yellow is inside the text, and you can offset it. You can offset it to get some colors. That's why you see some text are written and you see some colors like this. Where a texture is not used, like we earlier saw, you can use a text like this to give it some kind of 3D like look. Or you can offset it to the y direction, whatever direction you want to bring the text to, you can do it. We are going to be seeing how we can use these tools subsequently. Let me disable that. So we move again to the next thing, which is embold. When you take this emboss, emboss kind of make your shape into already a 3D look. Look at this. When you transform, let me just say this is the light. You choose the direction in which you want the light to be coming from. I want the light to come from this direction. It's coming from this direction, this way. If you want the light to come from, sorry, let me get back there. If you want this light to come from this direction, you can just begin to change them. You see, you can begin to change them. And here, with these options, it kind of work with your text, changing one form to another. This is specular harder. You just kind of work on this to see the structures that you get, to see the changes that it makes. The intensity of the light, you reduce it. Look at, we already, intensity is too shouty now, we take it back. So all these things, that's embellished. Now perspective. See how we are going to work on this perspective. But before we work on perspective, I'll just beg on you to go back to and remove the background of the text. This is the background of the text. Let me disable it so that we can have just the text, and probably let me remove shadows so that we can have a plain text, all right, for you to see clearly. Now when we take this perspective board, you have to first of all enable it, and when you enable it, when you drag this down, look at, you are kind of giving it an inward feel or a depth. You can use this to align an object on a wall, where on a wall that is vertical or horizontal or facing a direction away from the scene that you are using. For instance, objects are far from from your front view, look smaller when you go behind. So when you take, okay, now look at how your text looks like. If there was a wall here, you can easily place this on it. But when we start taking examples, you will see how this option works very well. All right, we move to the next thing, which is of course 3D rotation. This rotation is based on a 3D, not the 2D up and down. It is a 3D. So we are saying that this kind of rotation, it is a kind of rotation, this 3D, this is 3D here, it's a kind of rotation. First of all, disable this perspective, please. This is a kind of rotation that works in a 3D perspective. Look at, if we rotate this x-axis, look at, it can almost give you the bottom of the look at, it almost gives you the bottom of it, and it takes it back up and this. And if you take it to the y-axis, this is it, it rotates almost like a real world rotation. That's why we call it 3D because the real world operates with the mindset of a 3D rotation. Now we want to look at a 3D text. This one is where you can actually add the text to either be longer, shorter, make the 3D perspective to be thicker and more visible. Look at when we enable this. Look at the text already by default, it already has some kind of perspective, but we are going to go ahead to add depth. Depth is that what gives it that 3D form. Look at, if you add depth, you can still go until the end. Look at this, the type of depth we add to this text. And then you can also change colors. Remember, I already told you about colors. You can change that's the color of the 3D addition that you have added behind the 3D. You can color it to any color you want. That's behind the text. You can also go to the gradient and take any color from the gradient to achieve any result that you were aiming for. The same thing, if you darken it, it kind of gives a darker color. If you rotate it the X way, look at it, brings it just like we had the rotation earlier on. And then you can do a lot of things by just touching on this and adjusting them. So we can also work on the lighting. We can take the lighting to this other angle. We can bring it to the bottom. We can take it to the top. That is how it works. We can reduce the intensity to make it darker a little bit. That's for the addition, the 3D behind, the addition behind, the let me say the depth behind, and then the shadow. You can work on the shadow of that depth, and these are other things you can work on. So this one is for the 3D world. This is now a 3D shadow. Look at a 3D shadow. From a 3D text, we have a 3D shadow. It kind of give a shadow on this text and give the impression that this text is suspended up. Look at when we add a shadow here. Just enable it and see what happens. You see, it gives some kind of feel. It gives some kind of feelings that this text is standing on the floor, on a kind of floor, a virtual floor. All right, so we can work on this furthermore by increasing the opacity and make it stronger to give a strong effect on that object where it is found. We can blur it, reduce the radius, sorry. You see, the more you work on these items here, you keep getting different results. You can change the colors to whatever color you want to have. Okay, people. You can also add, where you see this plus icon here with the colors, you can always add colors like we did in the previous times where we did it. Okay, we're going to take okay right now. We move to the next thing, reflection. Reflection kind of give a second image, but in a mirror way. Look at when we enable this, look at, there's another text below. Look at that keenly, you see a text below. So this is how important these tools are when using them. If you want to bring it to, you want to make it more distant, you can bring it a little bit like this, or you take it back, or make it just a little bit close to itself, or like this. Whatever way you choose, that's how you manipulate these things. And when you come to this object, this is for the text panel, we'll keep that aside. When you come to this object here, there's something you can do with this object. Number one, you go to the next icon here, of which this next icon provides you options that you can use to deal with this text. For instance, we have color. If you click on this color, you can change the color. You click on this texture, you can change you can bring in another texture like we did. Please, I'm sorry I have to be going through this again and again and again and again, but I wish that you understand already the concept of this texture stuff, because I already explained. Okay, so you see the texture has already been reviewed in the text. This is how the texture is being reviewed in this text. All right, so but we're going to